Here's a number that should stop you cold. 3.6 million Americans defaulted on their student loans in just the last 2 quarters. Not behind on payments, not delinquent, defaulted, and the government is now coming to collect from your paycheck, your tax refund, and eventually your social security. The student loan system just went through its biggest overhaul in a generation. The plan 7.5 million people were counting on gone. New rules are hitting July 1st. Wage garnishment has already started, and most borrowers have absolutely no idea any of this happened. If you have federal student loans, or you know someone who does, the next 4 minutes of your life might be the most financially important ones you spend this year. Let's break it down. Let's start with the SAVE plan, because this is ground zero for everything that's breaking right now. In 2023, the Biden administration launched what it called the most affordable student loan repayment plan in American history. It was called SAVE. Saving on a valuable education. And for millions of borrowers, it was a lifeline. A single person earning $50,000 a year. Their monthly payment under SAVE could be as low as $110. Under the old income-based repayment plan, that same person would owe closer to $325 a month. That's not a small difference. That's rent money, that's groceries, that's the margin between making it and not making it. Over 8 million Americans enrolled in SAVE. They built their entire monthly budgets around it. Then the court struck it down. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the SAVE plan unlawful. In late 2025, the Trump administration reached a settlement with the state of Missouri, ending the plan permanently. And in early 2026, the Department of Education officially began notifying all 7.5 million remaining SAVE borrowers. Your plan is over. You have 90 days to find a new one. That's it. No extensions. No automatic enrollment in a better option. No hand-holding. Just a letter or an email most people probably filtered into spam, telling them the financial foundation they built their lives around no longer exists. And here's what makes this even more complicated. Interest started accruing again on August 1st, 2025 for people who had been sitting in zero interest forbearance for over a year. So not only are payments going up, balances are going up at the same time. Now here's where this stops being a policy story and becomes a financial crisis story. Because SAVE wasn't just inconvenient to lose. For millions of borrowers, losing it meant going from an affordable payment to one they simply cannot make. And the numbers show exactly what happened next. According to the New York Fed's Consumer Credit Panel, one of the most authoritative sources on household debt in the country, roughly 1 million borrowers defaulted in the fourth quarter of 2025. Then another 2.6 million defaulted in the first quarter of 2026. 3.6 million people in 6 months. That's not a wave, that's a flood, and it's not over. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's office released data showing that 10 million borrowers are on track to enter default in 2026, more than in any year before the pandemic. The Student Borrower Protection Center puts that number even higher, projecting 13 million in default by year's end if current trends hold. Now you might be thinking, okay, default sounds bad, but what does that actually mean for me? Here's what it means. The federal government has tools for collecting student loan debt that no private creditor could ever dream of. They don't need a court order. They don't need to sue you. They can go directly to your employer and take up to 15% of your disposable paycheck. They can intercept your tax refund before it ever hits your account. And eventually, they can offset your social security benefits. Wage garnishment has already begun in the summer of 2026. The notices went out. The clock is ticking. And your credit score? New York Fed data shows that borrowers who defaulted saw their scores drop an average of 91 points between 2024 and the end of 2025. That stays on your credit report for 7 years. 7 years of higher interest rates on everything. 7 years of harder time getting an apartment. 7 years of paying the penalty for a system that changed the rules while people were already playing the game. Now let's zoom out, because this isn't just a personal finance story. This is a macroeconomic event. There is $1.77 trillion in outstanding student loan debt in the United States. That makes it the second largest category of household debt in the country, behind only mortgages, ahead of auto loans, ahead of credit cards. And when millions of borrowers suddenly see their monthly payments double or triple, that money has to come from somewhere. It comes from consumer spending. It comes from housing. Young Americans who are starting to think about buying a home are now watching that dream move further away, because their debt-to-income ratio just got worse overnight. It comes from retirement savings. When you're scrambling to make a $325 payment instead of a $110 one, you're not putting $200 extra into your 401k. You're not building a safety net. You're surviving. And here's the macro irony. The Federal Reserve has been fighting to bring inflation down, trying to cool consumer spending, trying to slow the economy to a manageable pace. Student loan repayment, the restart in 2023 and this new wave in 2025 and 2026 is functioning like a tax on consumption, on the exact generation that was supposed to drive the next phase of economic growth. Consumer spending makes up roughly 70% of US GDP. When 10 to 13 million borrowers suddenly have hundreds of dollars less to spend each month, you feel that in retail numbers. You feel it in restaurant foot traffic. You feel it in housing demand. You feel it in auto sales. This isn't just 45 million people's personal problem. This is a drag on an economy that is already navigating slowing growth, elevated rates, and a labor market that isn't as bulletproof as the headlines suggest. Student loans aren't a political talking point. They're a macroeconomic variable. And right now, they're moving in a direction that should make everyone pay attention, not just borrowers. Alright, let's get specific, because this is where most explainers get vague, right when you need them most. As of July 1st, 2026, the federal student loan system operates under a new structure created by Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed into law on July 4th, 2025. Here's what changed. For new borrowers, meaning loans taken out after July 1st, 2026, there are now only two repayment options. Option 1, the tiered standard plan, fixed monthly payments over 10 to 25 years depending on how much you owe. Think of it like a mortgage, predictable but rigid. Option 2, the repayment assistance plan or RAP, an income-driven plan where you pay between 1% and 10% of your adjusted gross income. This is the new administration's answer to save. It does cap your interest so your balance doesn't spiral, which is good, but the payment floor and ceiling are different from what borrowers had before. For existing borrowers, meaning you already have loans, the options are more complicated, and that's where most people are getting lost. If you are on Save, you need to switch. Your options right now are Income-Based Repayment (IBR) scheme, still available, and the Department of Education is actively recommending this as your safest harbor while RAP rolls out. RAP available July 1st, 2026. The government is calling this the long-term replacement, standard 10-year plan, the most predictable path if your income can support it. Here's what they're not telling you loudly enough. PAYE and ICR plans are being phased out. If you're on either of those or were counting on them, you need to move now. Forgiveness from income-driven repayment is now taxable. The American Rescue Act exemption that shielded forgiven amounts from federal taxes expired at the end of 2025. It was not extended. If you receive forgiveness in 2026 or later, the IRS will treat that forgiven balance as income on $50,000 of canceled debt. That's potentially a $10,000 plus tax bill in 1 year. Note, PSLF forgiveness, public service loan forgiveness, remains tax-free at the federal level, but the program itself has new eligibility restrictions we'll get to in a moment. Forbearance is now capped. Going forward, you can pause payments for a maximum of 9 months in any 2-year period. The era of open-ended payment pauses is over. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most borrowers. So let's make that count. Here is exactly what you need to do in order. Step 1. Log into studentaid.gov. Tonight, not this week, tonight. Go to studentaid.gov, log in with your FSA ID and find out what plan you're currently on, who your loan servicer is, what your current balance is, including any interest that's been accruing. If you were on Save, your servicer should be contacting you with a 90-day deadline. But don't wait for that letter. Go find the information yourself. Step 2. Use the loan simulator. studentaid.gov has a free tool called the loan simulator. It lets you plug in your income, family size, and loan balance, and shows you what you'd pay under every available repayment plan side by side. Run the numbers on IBR, on RAP, on the standard plan. See what works for your actual financial life. This tool is free. You do not need to pay any third-party company to tell you this information. Anyone charging you to navigate this is taking advantage of a crisis. Step 3. If you're in default, act immediately. Do not wait. Do not ignore the letters. The federal government is now garnishing wages. Tax refunds are being intercepted. If you're in default, your options right now include loan rehabilitation, make 9 on-time payments, doesn't have to be full payments, and your default status is removed from your credit report. Loan consolidation combines your defaulted loans into a new direct loan and can get you into a new repayment plan faster. Call your servicer directly. Get out of default before garnishment begins, because once it starts, stopping it is significantly harder. Step 4. PSLF borrowers. Verify everything. If you work in public service, government, qualifying non-profits, and you're counting on public service loan forgiveness, you need to know 2 things. First, effective July 1st, 2026, the Department of Education can now deny forgiveness to workers whose employers are deemed to have a substantial illegal purpose, a definition left entirely to the Education Secretary. Several major cities have already sued over this. If you work for a local government, verify your employer's eligibility status now at the PSLF help tool on studentaid.gov. Second, you must be on a qualifying repayment plan for your payments to count. If you were on Save, those months likely do not count. Switch to IBR or a qualifying plan immediately and track your payment count carefully. Step 5. If you're a parent plus borrower. This group is almost always left out of the conversation, and that's a mistake. If you have parent plus loans and want income-driven options going forward, you need to consolidate your loans before July 1st, 2026 and enroll in a qualifying IDR plan. After that date, the window narrows significantly. If you're also pursuing PSLF, you have until July 1st, 2028 to get on IBR, but the sooner, the better. Here's the thing about all of this that most people miss. The student loan system was not built to help you pay off your debt. It was built to ensure you keep servicing it. Forgiveness programs were always the exception, surrounded by conditions, deadlines, and fine print designed to disqualify as many people as possible. What just happened in 2025 and 2026 isn't really a surprise if you understand how policy actually works in this country. A program that helped 8 million lower income borrowers pay less was always going to face legal and political attack, because those are 8 million people not paying back the full amount. What is genuinely different this time is the scale. 3.6 million defaults in 6 months, wage garnishment already underway, 13 million potentially in default by year's end. These are numbers that will show up in GDP figures, in consumer confidence reports, in housing starts, in the Fed's models. This is no longer a story about student loans. This is a story about what happens to an economy when it leaves a generation of workers financially stranded and then asks them to spend, invest, and grow the country forward. And if you're one of the 45 million Americans who owes federal student debt right now, the most important thing you can do isn't to feel angry or overwhelmed or helpless. It's to log in, know your status, know your options, and move before the window closes, because the system was never going to do this for you. That's what Dollar&Demand is here for. Quick recap before you go. Save plan is dead. 7.5 million borrowers need a new plan now. New repayment options, wrap and tiered standard. Go live July 1st, 2026. Wage garnishment has started. Default is no longer just a credit score problem. Log into studentaid.gov. Run the loan simulator. Know where you stand. If you're on PAYE or ICR, those plans are being phased out. Move to IBR now. If this video explained something your loan servicer never did, share it. Someone in your life needs this right now and doesn't know it yet. And if you want to understand how all of this connects to the Fed, inflation, and the bigger economic picture playing out right now, we've got a lot more coming. This is Dollar and Demand. See you next video.